Mama Helen TV show, Mama Helen Otide, Mommy Tiwade, Mama Helen Tutide, oríṣiríṣi ara.
I was diagnosed of bipolar disorder, and since then there have been this stigma around me. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, and it's not helping matters at all. What is the way forward for me?
When you are talking about symptoms such as feeling sad or mood swings or things like that, you can't attribute that to a single mental health issue. So for example, feeling down could be a sign of depression. It could also be schizophrenia, it could be PTSD, it could be a lot of different things.
How somebody feels about themselves. These people don't feel good about themselves. They feel, they might be reflecting on something that they did themselves, or they might be reflecting on how they were treated, and they feel bad. They feel, not good enough, not loved enough, not worthy. If you deal with the trauma underneath, then you can help them build confidence and self-esteem.
I mean, what's the meaning of presenteeism? In other words, I mean, when you're at work, but you're not functional.
Yeah.
Oh, so kind of like...
So yes.
Like you're there but detached.
But you're not there.
Yeah,
you're not there really. And that could affect
that's true,
productivity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
especially if you're a
well.
nurse or you're in a profession that needs you to be, and they're probably some of the worst as well. They don't look after some of their staff really.
Well, when I was at university, the therapist I saw there he used to be the leader of the therapists who looked after the doctors and nurses in the NHS, and he said that they had some of the worst stress he'd ever seen. And it's apparently, I'm just kind of repeating what he said, but he said it's a bit cutthroat with that world because of the fellowships and people trying to get that promotion and get this money for their research or whatever. But working for the NHS, it should be a surprise to no one that is a stressful environment. Because
you're sure at work, but you're not really doing anything. You're not adding value.
You're detached.
You're detached.
Imagine if you're a doctor and it's on your record, then that could, people could pass you over for promotion, or they just think, stigmatise. And I think you're absolutely right about like police officers. They don't want it on their record because they don't want to have that label.
What about students as well? How do they? Yes.
The university students, speaking from experience. But one of the issues they most commonly encounter is kind of like homesickness taken to it's quite a drastic conclusion. The sheer volume of young people who leave home for the first time, go off to university, and then within a couple of weeks are signing up to some kind of counselling or therapy is unreal. In this country, I can't speak for the rest of the world, but in this country, it's unreal. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's attributed to. I don't know if that's just young people not being prepared at home to sort of leave the nest and go out, or if they leave the nest, go out into the world, go to university.
Peer pressure?
I don't know. I'm not sure peer pressure is such a thing at uni.
I think it's safety, isn't it? I think you've got to look at the biological component of why we have fears and what happens with those fears. So because we're all connected, we can't survive by ourselves. And I think isolation means your chances of survival would be reduced if we were, think back to our ancestors living outdoors and amongst wild animals and tribesmen. you didn't know what you were going to get. Look out in the cave.
The good old days.
Yeah. So if you were out by yourself, then the chance of survival would be much less. Yes. So I think this is inbuilt in us. So being on our own doesn't make us feel safe.
It's not the human design.
Yeah.
It's really not the human design. Because there's that whole. I can't remember who authored it, but there's the whole thing of the greenbeard. The whole my tribe has green beards. It's a whole thing to do with
familiarity as well, isn't it? And being
what do you call it when you do something without expecting something back?
Altruism.
Altruism. Thank you. I've just gone completely blank. But the whole greenbeard thing is all talking about altruism and how altruism evolved as a need for family units to survive.
Absolutely.
But I mean, to just sort of circle back around to the original question of the effects on society, one of the things that kind of plays on my attention is crime. It's a lot of people, like I said, when I was working for the YMCA, a lot of people who came through who had these issues, they had a record. And 3 examples I found really interesting when you compare them is the recidivism rates, so the reoffense rates of United Kingdom, United States, and Norway, because each country has its own way of dealing with things. The United States has a very brutal prison policy. It's famous for it's mass incarceration. That's their thing.
Definitely. Yeah.
They've turned prison into an industry, and as a result, with the aggression and the violence and then so on and so forth, 80% of people who are released will reoffend. So it's 80% recidivism, which is terrible. Then you look at Norway, who is the polar opposite end, and their prisons operate more like summer camps. So they have these nice big rooms, they're well decorated, they are treated like people. And when these convicts in America, when you go to prison, you go into a cell, you're treated like an animal and you're brutalized.
And you come out like an animal then, don't you? If you've been treated, it's all about how you're treated, isn't it? And I think,
well, this is why I say with Norway, when you go back to the Norwegian example, they
rehabilitation, I suppose, isn't it?
They work them out. They're like, okay, you're committing violent crimes. Let's go back through who you are as a person, back to your childhood, that first 0 to 24, and figure out what made you this way. And they have a recidivism rate of 20%, which is drastically lower. Amazing. And then over here, ours fluctuates between like 29 and 30%. So we're closer to the Swedish model in terms. Well, we're closer to Norwegian numbers, but we operate more like the American system, but not to the same extent.
Punishing, it's just like, without...
It's punitive. We don't need it. I mean, there's two words that should never exist side by side, which are juvenile prison and juvenile detention, and we have that. You shouldn't be taking children, and these kids come from rough environments. They come from broken homes. John Bowlby, who was a very famous psychologist in this country in the 60s and 70s.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, he talks about the attachment theory. But he ran an experiment where he found that young men from like the 13 to 17 age range from broken homes where they were experiencing violence, where it was single mother environments, that kind of thing, they were more likely to end up in the prison system. And
delinquent.
Truancy and delinquency. And
okay. Well, we can just go on and on. Obviously endless. But I just wanted to look at this because someone is watching out there and is wondering, okay, I am actually suffering. I'm going through some of the things that you probably would consider a symptom, or and how do I get out of this? For example, is it treatable? Is mental illness treatable?
Oh, absolutely.
Everything is treatable.
Curable?
That's a different question.
Well, I intentionally asked that.
Yes,
I absolutely.
Is it treatable or curable?
I absolutely. You see, I come from absolutely. Because it's the design of the brain. It's not having an illness like angina.
So you believe it's treatable and curable?
Well, it really, really depends on the
person. It does depend on the person as well, and maybe they can. I was going to say because
so if it is not curable, how can it be managed then?
Okay, so right. Let's just focus in for just a second on. Okay, so schizophrenia cannot be cured, but it can be treated. You can make it manageable. So there are medications which will balance out the chemicals and they will suppress the voices you might hear and that kind of thing. Something like depression, depending on the source, can be cured or treated. So for example, something like low serotonin levels can be treated with SSRIs and SRIs, which I personally despise.
Medication.
SRIs are terrible.
I would probably disagree with you a little bit.
Okay, you're welcome.
Well, that's fine. And that's the reason why we're having this.
Because nobody I know that comes through my door, I've treated hundreds and hundreds of people, not one person has actually had a test for serotonin levels. Yeah. So all this is like a lot of guesswork.
Yes.
So yes, their serotonin levels help us to feel well. But if your body is on a fight or flight system, your brain is only focusing on one thing at a time. It's survival. So it's in survival mode. Okay.
So it needs to be rewind.
So yes, exactly. So utilising the brain. Now we know more about the brain in the last 10 years than we've ever done. Yeah. So now, so it's about doing the opposite to what somebody is being used to doing. So maybe they're ruminating. When we ruminate over something from the past, we feel the emotion.
Yes.
Because the brain can't tell the difference of whether something's happening now or it's past. So all that past stuff, so people ruminate about the past, it's almost as like it's happening now, but it's not, it's over.
Okay.
Yeah. And
at what point do you think you need to cry for help?
I think getting help as soon as, and also dealing with things when they're small so they don't escalate. The reason why I ask this question is, I mean, not everything has to be true medication. It could only just be maybe to try a pill or something. Well, so at what point then, you know, I mean, when you think, okay, maybe there's a need for you to call your pastor, your priest, or possibly, you know, get in touch with a family member, or
of therapists,
Yeah,
for example.
therapists. Yeah. And I think these therapies now that are available, are having a much more positive effect. Even yoga's having more positive effect on than medication. It's actually relatively low, the success rate with the medication. Research is pretty bad and pretty poor.
It's a band-aid on an open wound.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
It doesn't deal with trauma. So it might be a physical symptom that it might be helping with. 30% of it is what we call placebo effect. So it's people thinking that they're getting better.
Oh,
that's really powerful.
Yeah, it works because you think it works.
It's really suppressed.
So people think that they're taking a tablet.
The medication you're taking is suppressing exactly what is wrong or something.
Remember, it's your thoughts.
Yeah.
Your thoughts determine how you feel.
So there's psychosomatics.
So dealing with trauma first. So what is underneath? And some people can't make the connection between a trauma and the way they feel. And sometimes it's not even something they can remember, but they can feel it. So maybe they're angry constantly, because they're masking some fear. They're masking it. So anger is really fear. But really, if you go back, that person might have had a really tragic childhood or a breakup of a relationship that they can't accept, or a bereavement, or they were bullied, or they lost their job, or there's so many things that affect us in our environment and our society.
In terms of dealing with it, I mean, there's a few different avenues you can take. The one they always kind of point directly at is speak to your GP. And one of the conflicts I have found with this system is the GP will always say, write down a diary of your feelings over the next couple of weeks. And if you're depressed, you're not going to do that.
I know this is still within what we're dealing with right now, and it is, how do you improve on your mental health then?
Okay, so one of the techniques, so I used different techniques. So one of meditation is huge, and I think that can have a really big effect. Also, relax. I do a technique called havening. Havening helps to make the brain feel safe. So it actually stimulates serotonin levels. So using the arms here and the face as a soothing. What happens in the brain is that we get what we call a delta wave, because we get different brainwave patterns. When we do this, it helps the body to feel calmer. And you can literally, it's a physical thing. Your viewers can actually
like a cuddle.
Can actually do. Yeah. Remember, we do these things, don't we? If we have bad news, we go, oh gosh, yeah. We hold our hands sometimes when we feel a bit stressed. We love people hugging us. So this helps the body to feel safe.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's a really, really powerful tool.
This is why when you see children and they put their arms out and they want their mom to hug them. I mean, that's encouraged.
I was just going to say that.
Touch is so important.
Touch is important.
Yeah, it's. I mean, again, going back to Bowlby, when you look at the things, so he did all this experimentation on attachment theory, and it was looking at how.
Isn't it always very important, at least to tell someone that, hey, you're not alone?
That can help, but it's. I don't know. See, I've always kind of seen the whole thing of it'll get better as very weak. I think if you want the biggest impact on, because you've got to rewrite the brain. You've got all these neurons, all these chemicals up here, because the human brain is literally electricity and meat and blood and chemicals. That's what it is. When you break it down, you remove the soul, the consciousness, the mind, whatever you want to call it. You peel that away. All that is just meat and electricity, and that's what's misfiring, going wrong. So you've got to rebuild that. I mean, memories are literally electricity and chemicals stored in the back of the brain, in the hippocampal region. So when people are there, just don't feel sad. That's not helpful. I
think it's tuning into your emotion, acknowledge it. Because what people do is stuff them down. And you see, this negative emotion stays in the body. And that's what I found with clients, that they go through all these levels.
Emotional intelligence.
I've never really used that. I know it exists. I know it's a scale. It's, from what I understand of emotional intelligence, it's the concept of how in tune you are with your own feelings and other people's feelings. But I've always just called that empathy.
I think it's being aware, insight. I think sometimes some people don't have insight into why they feel the way they do, and they're just not really checking in with themselves, and they just carry on with their behaviour.
Good self-awareness.
I think having an insight, thinking, why am I feeling like this? What is it I'm feeling? Rather than ignoring it.
Could it be therapeutic?
Yeah, I mean, I'm extremely self-aware. So whenever I'm in situations where I'm feeling a certain way, like someone's just been really rude to me, and I just think to myself, okay, I'm annoyed, but my responding in an aggressive way change the situation? Will it improve it? Will I feel? But no. So what I think to myself is, no, he's rude.
I
I'm not
love
letting
the
him change
word
me.
responding. You can either act or respond.
Yeah, I mean, like I play a lot of video games, and you will find that there's quite a lot of confrontation in the online world. And when people start getting really insulting and rude, I always think to myself, yeah, okay, I'm annoyed that he's insulting me, or she's insulting me, whoever it is. I can't see their face, but I always think to myself, I can sit here and I can get snarky and write mean things back, or I can just ignore them. They're nothing to me. So it's this whole thing of being aware of your emotions and thinking to yourself, okay, I feel down, and it's a nice sunny day, and I really want to go for a walk. That will make me feel good. And then just thinking, okay, let's go. And then you get up and you go. I mean, because like I say, I suffer with my own depressive issues and anxiety issues. And one of the things I've been doing a lot lately is I've got myself a new camera and some nice little lenses. And what I do is I put my headphones on, get my phone, get up some podcasts in my ears, and I go for a long walk and photograph and video stuff. And that's my haven.
Could exercise
exactly.
also
Exercise
play a role in
creates serotonin. It helps us to feel well. Eating well,
the food you
sleeping
eat,
better.
good.
Sleep deprivation, which is what happens with anxiety, is the biggest cause of illness. It really can shorten your life if you're not having enough sleep.
And
so it has such a detriment.
How do you combat the feeling of failure?
I think it's recognizing that sometimes failing helps us to do it better next time. So is it a failing or is it learning?
Yes.
So it's about how you view it, and sometimes we learn from our biggest failings.
Yes.
And if you look at companies, how many people have gone bankrupt or gone bust and then rebuilt their business, or so not seeing failure as the end of the world, or it's
As
like
fatal.
It's
not
like
fatal.
it's just learning.
As long
So
as
I
you're
say to
alive.
people, it's just learning.
Yeah.
We're all going to fail at something, but then you think, right, if I failed, what wasn't I doing? What could I be doing? What could I be doing differently?
Yes.
Instead of beating yourself up.
Self-up, yes.
And going, and going over stuff, thinking, and
But
using it
someone
as to go
says,
into your future.
I'm not failure, but I'm being bullied everywhere.
Yeah.
How do I handle that?
Okay, so bullies are people who are projecting how they feel about themselves. So it's not about you.
It's not about you.
So I think it's most of the stuff, you see, when you're anxious, you get paranoid and you think everyone's looking at you and laughing or whatever.
Second-guessing
And they're
yourself.
not. So this is our perception, but it's a characteristic of anxiety. So if we get, it's how you view it. A bully is somebody that's not happy. It's somebody that's got their own issues, and it's somebody that's
trying to
projecting
put it on
how they feel
other
about
people.
themselves. I mean, I was bullied when I was 13. But I later learned what was going on in that young man's life. He was a very angry man. And he had lots of issues. There were poverty. His family his father had left, and they didn't have any money. And so there's always something going on more than the target. But of course, the target thinks you think it's you.
It's you, basically.
And I think it's
You're
just
just the
having
easy
a sense
target.
of self.
It's just for you to know that it isn't you.
It's not
Yes.
exactly.
It has nothing to do with you as a person you're dealing
And
with.
like you said, you can either react to someone being rude, but actually it's their problem. They're projecting how they feel onto you.
I live by a motto I adopted a couple of years ago, which is, don't let other people define you.
I love that.
Yes.
Well,
I use that a lot.
So it's like, if I'm dealing with aggressive people, I can become aggressive, but then I become like them.
So true.
But if they're
Very
aggressive,
easily.
if they're aggressive, they're rude, whatever.
Kill
I'm
them with
like,
kindness.
yeah. If you remain true to who you are, you will always be happier. Because
Exactly.
It's communication, because what you're going to, it's communication very important as well.
Yes.
Because, when you internalize everything that goes on around you, it has a way of playing a lot of pictures or possibly putting you in a very bad mood as well.
Yes.
What I'm trying to say is that the need for you to socialize and communicate.
Yeah.
Tell people the way you feel.
And there's, your brain, as you said, it's full of billions of neurons, and when it's forever changing. It doesn't stay the same.
Constantly
and so we
running.
can lay pathways and getting to good practices about how we can think and how we can feel, and training the brain in a different direction. To be calm, to think, look, obviously there's something going on with that person. And I've noticed that not everybody, but lots of people at the moment are projecting. They're fearful. You can hear it. step back. Where's your mask?
2 meters.
Stop it. It's like whoa. And some people pointing, those they're trying to take your temperature. I don't agree with that. They're pointing it there like they're going to shoot me. I said, you shouldn't be doing that. I said, that doesn't make me feel very good. Yeah. But it's this sense of foreboding, sort of anxiety, isn't it? Fear that's around as well.
So improving your mental health, because that's where we are actually. I mean, so you're talking about the need to feed right, to socialize.
I think knowing what makes you happy, asking yourself,
do what makes you happy. I love that.
What is it how happy am I at the moment? And then
what would make me happy?
Yeah, I mean, I also like to think you should try and achieve something every day. Because I found on the days where, because I obviously do a lot of screenwriting and working on stories and so on. So on the days where I don't write anything, on the days where I'm not editing or working with any of my media, I'll sit there and I'll play video games as a means of making myself feel good. Because I'm not achieving the goal I want to be achieving, so my mood comes down. So I'll play video games as a coping mechanism to pull it up. But then I spend the whole day playing video games, so that drags me back down. And so it becomes this loop, this negative feedback loop. And what you need to do is you need to find a way of breaking that kind of thing, breaking that chain. And so what I'm doing is, this is why I'm doing these walks now. I'm going out on these long walks because I'm breaking that. Yeah, thank you. But I'm breaking that chain, and I'm trying to. There's the whole 10-minute per day rule, where you just do something for 10 minutes a day. Either writing, play chess, learn a new recipe, play an instrument, just spend 10 minutes doing something. Because then you've done it for 10 minutes. And sometimes, and if you hit that 10 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm done now. You can put it down, but you've done it. But if you, like with my writing, if I do it for 10 minutes, I'll blink and 2 hours have gone by. And now I feel I've achieved something, which improves my mood.
I think goal setting is really good. So writing goals down. And most people who write their goals achieve them. So for your viewers, write as many as you can and put them in lists, things that you can do now. So like goals, what can you do now? And today I can eat well or, change something.
Drink water, take a walk.
Yeah, and then, so writing goals, do you want to learn a new language or a musical instrument or whatever it is, cookery class or something. So I think writing things or writing goals down is really helpful.
Knowing the importance of being whole as a person. I just would like us to shed a little bit of light into the benefits of having a good mental health.
I think it helps you focus, clarity. When you're anxious, you don't have clarity. And so you don't know what direction you're going. I think anxious, and if you're anxious and depressed, it takes you in places that you don't want to be in, or keeps you in places. If you're too afraid to change your job because of what might happen, so it doesn't give you the opportunities. And I think good mental health helps you to feel healthier, happier, better relationships. People want to be around people who who have a sense of self that you can give more to other people when you're happy. You can't give anything when you're so the more you give to yourself, the more you can give to others.
I think it's also about it's also about finding meaning in your life. Because I mean, people who suffer from quite drastic mental health issues like depression and anxiety, like you say, they're paralyzed by their own fear and they never take that step. It doesn't matter what you're like. Using myself as an example, I mean, obviously, I'm trying to move into the creative arts. I'm trying to make that into a viable future for myself. That is one of the most tumultuous, unstable sectors of the. It's the biggest GDP. In our country, but it's tumultuous. It's constantly shifting. And so trying to move into that kind of environment, I'm thinking to myself, okay, like if I get this job and I start working photography, for example, will I be able to get contracts? What if I don't get contracts? Will I starve? And so you paralyze yourself. But then you look at guys like Peter McKinnon, who are world famous as photographers and videographers and cinematographers. And the difference between Peter and myself is that he went for it. And he didn't let he didn't let that fear get in the way and block him.
So that's interesting. So when people think about anxiety, they see the worst case scenario. They have pictures. You have lots of thoughts, so 20 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And we see pictures very quickly. So if you're seeing a picture of something bad happening, you feel bad. So when you do the opposite, you start focusing on visualizing what is it that you want. Positive. And like you're right. So the difference between somebody that doesn't get what they want and somebody that does is that they focused on it. So, and the reason that works is that your brain can't tell the difference between something you imagine and something you do. So if you imagine it going well, what's right about your life? What's wrong is always available.
Celebrate
what is right about it?
You're
no one's
worth it.
perfect.
No,
You're worth
I mean,
it.
one
Yes,
of the best bits of advice I actually got from a TED Talk of all places.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
Wait,
those.
I know
really
we can
like
go on
those.
and on, and I mean, this is really exciting, and quite a number of you out there, I'm sure. You might want to send in your questions and let us know how best we can better serve you. However, I just want you to leave, in few minutes, or should I say, 1 or 2 minutes, could you just let us know what your last thoughts will be for someone out there who's willing to learn and then move forward in life?
I think it's not being afraid to get, not being afraid, acknowledge how you feel. And if you can feel better, then go somewhere where you can feel better, whether it's a therapist or whether you can do some things yourself.
Someone once asked me, do I need to remove myself in this place because it's really giving me stress?
Environments, I mean, sometimes we don't thrive in certain environments. So asking yourself, is it the environment or is it the way I'm feeling at the moment? And acknowledging how you feel, and that's okay, rather than stuffing it down. And I think a lot of guys tend to do this, doesn't it? Yeah. And a lot of guys do this. They don't want to appear weak, or they don't want, they don't know how to deal with it, and they get just as traumatized as women, So, so we've got this huge problem with mental.
Way higher.
I know.
Because of that.
Yeah, exactly, because they don't, So it's about, there's no shame in that, because as humans we're vulnerable.
No shame.
And we have fear. And it's being able to move forward from the fear.
Not let it
hold you back.
Thank you very much, Karen. What a pleasure. Yes, please.
Thank you.
I always say that, first and foremost, if you do have issues with these kinds of things, if you do feel that you are drowning in your own misery and sorrow and you can't move forward with your life, do reach out to organizations. There's Steps to Change. There's Papyrus, which is more aimed at young people who are suicidal. There's Minds. There's so many of them. If you just type in Mental Health Charities UK, you will find a list. So if the NHS can't help you, and God bless them, they are trying, if they can't help you, there are organisations that will.
If you're here, if you're in this country.
The other thing I would say, so obviously if you're in the UK, I should imagine every country has its own mental health charities.
Sure.
I would like to think so anyway.
Sure.
But the other thing I would say is, you are the sum of the 4 people you're closest to. So if you surround yourself, this is going back to environment, if you surround yourself with 4 people,
of friends.
It's the 4 people you are closest to, your best friend, your mom, whoever it is you spend the most time with, listening to, whoever you let influence you. Those 4 people are going to change you the most. So if you surround yourself with people who are go-getters and they're entrepreneurs, they're writers, people who are trying at the very least, they fail and they get up and they go again. You will become like that.
So true.
But if you surround yourself with people who all they want to do is sit around, watch TV and mess with substances or whatever, and they have no drive, you will become like that. Choose your
friends wisely.
Choose your friends wisely. It has been. Thank you so very much indeed, Karen.
Thank you.
And Chaz, thank you so much for being here today. And then, of course, for all our crew members out there, thank you as well. ABN, you're still the best. All we've been looking at is the effects of mental health. And I want to believe that you have a take-home from all the things that you've heard from our guests. They have actually told us the importance of looking after yourself. At the end of the day, it is still you. You live in you, and you do everything in you before you interact with others. So it is how you take care of you that can determine how you also take care or probably look at others as well. So be you, do you, and stay very healthy. It is still Mama Helen and you. We thank you so much for watching, and never stop watching, because we have your back. God bless you. See you next time.
Mama Helen and you. To take you higher, it's to build your home, make you smile again. Keep a day with Mama Helen and you.
Mama Helen and you, showing on the African Broadcasting Network.